make sense out of 130. But the main thing is finally there's some comparative analysis. This is a raise. Well, it depends what numbers you take. Are we going from 19.5 to 29,250, which is a 50% raise? Or are we going from 18,330, which you have to back the number down below the 130 hours to get 1330 was the old rate, to get to 29,250, and it's a 60% raise? Or are we actually approving a raise, if it should turn out to be full-time, to $45,000 a year, which would make it a 145% rise? I put comments in here about those kind of salaries meeting or not meeting the California labor code.
They actually do. I went back and verified that today because it's based on full-time equivalency. So the person's wage must be at an hourly rate double the minimum wage for the state for it to qualify as an exempt position. So it does meet the qualification.
Well, double in California is $16 an hour full-time. It has to be at full-time weekly rate. Absolutely, it's the law. It has to be at full-time weekly. I looked it up too. I know. I've been doing payrolls for 40 years.
We can check on that. That isn't something you and I need to.
I think you should. Your actual proposal at 29,250 calls for a weekly rate of 542 an average a year, and you have to meet the 644 that the state requires. You have to.
You're stating that as if it's an absolute fact, and for my HR attorney that I consulted today, it's not true. My personal experience running a business with full-time equivalent positions under 1.0 FTE says that that's not true. But we can table that and actually ask an attorney separately from this discussion.
Okay.
But I have expertise in.
Also, well, I haven't seen the minutes from the personnel committee that made this recommendation. Are they available?
I don't have them with me.
No. Okay. And I've just seen the job description, so obviously I can't really.
Certainly not asking you to vote on it this evening.
Right. But, well, you were originally asking us to vote on this, and we didn't see a job description or anything. And it's certainly have been a party to it, which I think the full board should be before we're opening up a new job.
I think that's why we said we're going into closed session.
Good.
Asked for.
There is a lengthy normal chain that you would go through where you have to have a professional background in education or professional responsibilities, and we don't meet that in either of these cases. But
please explain what you just said so that I can address it.
Well, there are two qualifications you must meet in order to go exempt. One of them is salary, and we disagree on the reading of the law, but the way I read the law, it very specifically says you must pay at least $644 a week to somebody. So if it weren't that, what's the point of having a salary basis at all? And the second thing is in job description. The job description has to meet certain guidelines. One of them that's a no-brainer is if somebody's a doctor or a lawyer or an MBA or a professional person with an advanced degree. Another one might be a manager who's managing several FTEs and spends the majority of their time managing, but that's not the case either. The job description, based on what I was working on, I didn't see the job description, I just say I'll stipulate the existence of the enhanced job description, warranting such a huge change. This is just a massive change. We're talking, possibly doubling, and it's just amazing. But I would ask my fellow board members, doesn't this warrant opening this new job, effectively a new job? That is a big thing. If it's going to warrant that much of a change, shouldn't that go open to public application again? We just recently, this year, we got 100 applications for the job that exists that we're paying $15 an hour for. When we went through and the full board met to go over those applications, we called out the top 10 or 15, and Diane hit the top of the list, and we were happy. We made our decision. I was happy. I think it was a unanimous decision at the time. This big a change, I would feel that we should go out to the public again. We should open this up to the public to let people, to tell people in our public that, hey, we've struck gold, we've hit the lotto, you know, or whatever, and all of a sudden we can spend money like drunken sailors in San Francisco, and so we want to blow a bunch of money, and we'd love to have you come back in and reapply. That would seem to make sense to me, to open it up to the public. As far as meeting those job qualifications things, you really didn't even need to go that far. Special district employees don't need to be the specialty qualification list. They can do anything. You basically, they can be accepted if you want them to be accepted. But they must meet the salary guidelines. And it doesn't meet that. So, but why do it? Possibly going along with exempt, the only thing that we theoretically buy is we don't have to pay overtime. But working a 20-hour-a-week person isn't going to start billing 45 or 50 hours a week. So we're not really going to have much risk on the overtime issue. I think the real risk to us is if later on there are lawsuits about this, claiming that this is it wasn't properly administered. We didn't have proper legal or employment HR counseling on this. And 3 years from now, somebody's going to file, some lawyer's going to get a potentially juicy case to try and collect back overtime or to collect different rates. Who knows what it's going to be? It's a quagmire is what I'm saying. We could be stepping into a quagmire, and I don't see any particular reason to do it. And but we certainly should actually go out and get legal help, not only for should we have a closed meeting, but I think we should go out and actually consult, get professional help to consult. So, those are a few thoughts. If you look at that worksheet there, you'll find that I know the feedback I've had from the community that if we're going to raise Diane to $22 an hour after we just basically lost Roberta at 18 or 19, this is a slap in the face to where we were.
Roberta's hourly rate was $22.50.
Yeah, that was what it was.
Where there's a lot more responsibility with this job that Roberta was not doing. So.
Yep. Oh, we're still a board discussion. So.
Okay.
I don't think that's right. I've got actually, what I've included on my numbers here are the budgets for the last 4 years, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah, you coming up with separate numbers for me coming up with separate numbers is not a useful way to have a discussion. If you
I've got the budgets.
Yeah, it would be helpful if we were on the same page. So if you disagree with $22.50 an hour rate, I would need to know what hourly rate you saw.
Well, I put it
because
down.
I'm new. I am new, so.
I put it down here. It's on the worksheet, bottom right-hand corner.
Where did that number come from?
From the budgets that we approved over the last 4 years.
Okay. So the most recent hourly, it's an hourly rate that we can see in our payroll system, and it was the rate that she was paid is the rate that she was paid. So I don't know what else to do.
You might have grabbed a hold of a number that was the most recent budget 2 months before she left. You have to remember she just left last year, and she gave notice when she came back from vacation about, well, earlier than this, in August or September. So she'd only been paid 2 months on the on the existing budget for last year, this year. That she might have been, I see, I've got that number down here. The budget had raised her up to $34,000 for this year. Nonetheless, she didn't really get it. What she got in her greatest year was $32,000, which is her biggest year.
And what we're proposing is an annual equivalent that would come up to $25,000, based on the number of hours that we have staff currently working. So it just feels like you're comparing apples and monkeys. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like that it's about, like, we're not comparing the same numbers. It would be really helpful because some of the concerns you raised, I think we probably should bring back to the board for discussion. If you had a summary of your concerns that either you attend the next personnel committee meeting or bring them to me so that they can get discussed at the next personnel committee meeting. But some of them I'm also not, we need to go back and do research on it. I don't believe we should let them stand with their back. I think, and I have different sources of information, so we need to verify our sources.
Any other board members? Did someone in the audience want to say something? Yes, ma'am.
I don't begrudge anybody a raise. I was in the workforce for 41 years. I got a couple raises over the years, but never to the extent this is going to be. But Roberta kind of was, they kept cutting her hours because Ron Moore kept calling, we're poor. Where did this financial windfall come from? That we can afford to almost double the salary retroactively.
No, we're not talking about doubling any salary. I think you people are exaggerating figures again. We're not talking about doubling anything.
Okay, all right. You're going to go from $15 an hour to $21 an hour, is that?
That's not doubling. That's not.
That's kind of what you're
Doubling
talking
would
about.
be $30 an hour.
No.
21.
I mean, where did the windfall come from? Well, Roberta, they kept sending her hours. Ron was telling us we're broke. Where did it come from?
And back then we were broke. We had the lawsuit on the beach because of the gravel deal. Remember we went through all those things? We got through all those, and now we went on to a new thing. We're coming back into the black again. There's not a windfall, but we're back in the black. We're not broke again. We're not rich, but we're not
I'd
broke.
also like to repeat what I just said, which I think is the most important part of it. It's not like taking an employee arbitrarily from this rate to that rate based on no other input or data. The employee that was hired to perform very low-level administrative tasks, essentially paper pushing. We have restructured what this position is doing, and based on the capabilities of a talented staff person that we accidentally got for $15 an hour, and she is saving the district well more than the small incremental amount that we are suggesting that we pay her. And I know Mary came in late to this portion of the discussion, but Mary is my HR expert. I would love to have you assist us with input on this.
You're switching into performance. Do you want to open?
No, it's not opening it.
Peter, raise you back your turn. Go ahead.
There are a few realities here. One is there's a job market. If you wanted to, she assumed responsibilities from the county for doing all of the accounting for the district is an additional responsibility. If you want to start taking responsibilities away from her, then that will create a different market condition. She is, you just can't compare. And as far as putting the job out to bid again, what are you going to do with her?
She's an hourly worker.
No.
At-will worker.
There isn't an opening anyway. I mean, it
Right.
doesn't make any sense to put the job.
This is a whole new position.
No, it's
Yeah,
not
no,
a
but
full position. It's the same position. Yeah, you want to say, I'm sorry, Dan, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'm hearing all kinds of stuff, and my understanding that in this new position, Diane has taken over functions that were previously hired out to the county, for which the board was paying, my understanding is a significant amount of money that you are no longer paying. So that is a significant responsibility, for someone to take on the accounting that the county no longer does. That's a change in the job, and I think that paying somebody a reasonable amount for that level of responsibility is the right thing to do. If you think that she's not doing the right job for you, you want to go out to the market again and say, well, we need to find somebody better, then that's a different conversation. But is she worth? If we're asking, is she worth what what you're proposing to pay her? I think you have to look at all kinds of things that are not how much is it a raise over what Roberta got. How does it even compare to what Roberta got? It's what the reality is in the market today. So I think that conversation is much broader.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, you need to look at jobs, not people in the jobs, the things that are expected of this job.